اهلا وسهلا. احنا هنتكلم في قسم القانون التجاري، واحنا اتكلمنا في العقود التجاريه وخلصناها، وكان ابتدينا في العمليات البنوك واشتغلنا في الودائع النقديه المصرفيه، وانما هنتكلم فيها تاني علشان تكونوا نسيتوا الكونتراكت. The legislator organized this kind of banking operations under the name of money deposit. The money deposit is a very important source of money to the bank. According to this source, the bank can do his work of lending money and invest money in different kinds of work in the economy of the state. It can finance the different sort of enterprises to be able to produce either product or service. Therefore, the legislator started the provisions of banking operations by organizing this work. This work occupies 9 articles in the trade law, from Article 301 to 309. We will deal with this subject as the following: definition and the elements of money deposit contract, the effects of money deposit contract. As to the definition and the element of money deposit contract, the legislator in the trade law provides in Article 301 on the definitions of the money deposit. It provides that the money deposit is a contract. Take care. The money deposit is a contract. Take care. The money deposit is a contract. Authorizes the bank the property of the deposited money. Look at that. Look to these very important words. The money deposit is a contract. Authorized. The bank the property of the deposited money and disposing according to its activities under obligation to return similar money to the depositor according to the conditions of the contract. From the words of this article, we can notice that the legislator translates its view to the money deposit operations. That is, the money deposit is one of the banking operations. In fact, it is not only a physical work, but also it is a legal act. The source of this act is the contract of money deposit. For that, we find that the legislature said that the money deposit is a contract. That means the deposit of money at the bank is a legal act represented in the contract. Then all the elements and the conditions of the contract theory must be existed in this act. We know that the contract is an agreement between two parties to do a legal effect. The elements of the contract are the consent, the object, and the consideration. We note that some jurists in the period of enforcing the trade law of 1883 defined this act as the money delivered by the person to a bank, and the latter is obliged to pay back a similar sum on demand or according to the conditions of the contract. Another tendency goes to define the act as a contract and says that the money deposit is the contract whereby the individuals or the organizations deposit the money at the bank, and the bank undertakes to pay them back or an equal sum to them or to definite person on demand or according to the conditions agreed on. We can say that Deposit is a contract between the customer and the bank, whereby the customer can deposit at the bank a sum of money for a rate of return paid the customers. The bank agrees in return to make the same number of money available to the customers and the time they wish. The depositor enters into a written agreement with the bank that no part of the sum will be withdrawn prior to the maturity date. Some jurists go to say that most people suppose that a bank lends the deposits of its customers. In fact, the word deposits is used in two entirely different, inconsistent ways. That the word deposit means first, deposit as a physical asset, surrender, or deposit as sums of money owned by the bank to the depositors. The former is an asset. The second is a liability of the bank, which means that the bank is in debit, not is an owner of the money deposited to it. Elements of the contract. From the language of the Article 301 of the trade law, we noted that the legislator qualified the money deposit as it is a contract between a deposit sit, that it is a contract between a depository bank and the depositor customer. Therefore, we will discuss the general elements and the specific elements of the contract. As to the general elements, it is not a problem, because it is the consent, object and consideration. But as to the specific element, that specific element is the customer, between the customer and the bank. That is a specific element of this contract. Some jurists go to say that as to the customer means any person having an account with a bank or for whom a bank has agreed to collect items and included a bank maintaining an account at another bank. We see that definition as so wide, as it includes all kinds of the activities of the bank, but in the circle of money deposit contract, we can define customer as the person who contracts with the bank to pass the bank his money to keep and save the money till the time of the maturity, which is the time of taking bank the money from the bank. So the customer is the person who had the right to deposit money at the bank and withdraw the money from the bank according to the regulations of the bank. The relationship of banker and customer does not come into existence unless both parties intend to enter into it. There must be a deposit account to make a person a customer of the banker. As to the depository must be a bank. The legislator does not define a bank in trade law. When the legislator defined the money deposit, it defines it as a contract between the depositor and the depository bank. A trend in jurists goes to say that the meaning of bank or bankers should be interpreted as every person, firm, or company accepted deposit of money subject to withdrawal by check, draft, or order. The traditional view, namely that no one may be considered a banker unless he pays check drawn on himself. So now we will expose to the very important point, which is the effects of the contract. The money deposit is a contract between the depositor and the depository. We say that the depositor is the customer and the depository is the bank. This contract results many effects on the two parties, the customer and the bank. Here we will analyze the effects of this contract as to both parties. We will discuss here that as the effects as to the customer and the effects as to the bank. The effects as to the customer, there are obligations. That means the contract is in force between the two parties.